The Republicans pulled an unprecedented sleazy trick in the Senate this week. Apparently, they're eager to get us back into a recession, so they're trying to take away the few protections that were put in place to re-regulate Wall Street after the crash. Huffington Post reports on this. They say, the Senate Appropriations Committee voted Thursday to pass a $20.6 billion spending bill that would decimate President Barack Obama's signature Wall Street reform law. Senator Richard Shelby, who's a Republican of Alabama, offered an entire bill as an amendment. His legislation takes direct aim at the 2010 Dodd-Frank financial reform law. It would dramatically restrict the government's ability to regulate big banks by easing regulations for dozens of mid-sized lenders and beefing up oversight of the Federal Reserve. It also rolls back key consumer protections. So get this. It's a 236-page amendment attached to a 184-page bill. So the amendment to the bill is bigger than the bill itself. And I love the Orwellian name they gave it. They called it the Financial Regulatory Improvement Act. It does the opposite. They call it Financial Regulatory Improvement Act. What it does is it takes away the few remaining aspects of Dodd-Frank that are there. And they also do another classic Republican trick. They say, oh, no, we're doing this because we want to help the smaller-sized banks. That's why we're doing this, silly. The same thing when they pass tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. What do they say? We're doing a middle-class tax cut package. Now, in reality, they don't. They're not doing that. The tax cuts will be specifically targeted at billionaires and corporations. But they say, hey, it's a middle-class tax cut, so that everybody rolls over, and they go, oh, yeah, I guess we got to vote for it. Well, it's the same thing here. We're just trying to get burdensome regulations off the smaller banks. That's why we're doing this. We care about the little guy. Again, that's not true. What they're doing is they're gutting the few remaining aspects of Dodd-Frank, which was weak to begin with, and which they've already been assaulting from day one. So this is the new sleazy trick that they do. For the longest time, they would add little amendments to bills, which take away one provision of Dodd-Frank or another provision of Dodd-Frank, and they put it in bills that have nothing to do with it. It could be a bill for infrastructure repair, and they just slip it in there, and they say, well, look, I mean, if you guys want to fix infrastructure, this is how you get my vote, is you have to get rid of financial protection and financial reform, and we'll get into another great recession, and we'll pretend like we don't know how it happened, but just do it. Allow my nonsense in there along with your bill. And then now they've graduated to not just putting like little provisions in a bill. Now they're like, fuck it, just put an entire bill as an amendment on a different bill, and usually they do it where it's a must-pass situation, where it's like you got very little time remaining, it's something that needs to be re-upped, and then they're like, slip it in the last second, and then, Democrats are caught off guard, and some of them will buckle anyway, and they'll end up voting for it. Now, thankfully, the White House has come out and said, no, we're going to veto it. If you really try to do stuff like, stuff this brazen, we're going to veto it. Unfortunately, it was only Jack Lew, the Treasury Secretary, who came out and said that, which means I don't know if they're actually going to do it, because Jack Lew said, I will implore the president to veto it, or something to that effect. Nah, it's not strong enough for me, man. Because remember, they did this also, and they did another sleazy deregulatory trick around Christmas time, right before the break, and President Obama signed it. So all he had to do was veto it in order to, fix the scenario, and then you come back later and you deal with it whenever. He signed it. So will he do it here? He might do it here, because you have to understand he already got the praise for passing Dodd-Frank in the first place. And our media is so shitty that they're not going to call this out. So he's already gotten the praise as a historic financial reform. Since he's gotten the praise, now they're dismantling it piece by piece. He's not getting the blame when they dismantle it piece by piece. So he's like, hey, I get to please everybody. I get to please my donors, my corporate donors, my Wall Street donors who helped me out to get elected. And also, I already got the praise as if what I did was, akin to the New Deal, or as if what I did was like Glass-Steagall. Well, it wasn't. It's not that. It was weak reform to begin with, and now they're launching an all-out assault on it. And understand, mark my words, there will, at some point, be another crash. And that crash can come from many different areas. It can come from the student loan debt crisis. It can come from derivatives. It can come from reinflating the housing bubble, as we know they did, which is what we're talking about here, and they're trying to get rid of whatever regulations are left. So when we do have the next crash, it's not going to be because the government was too left-wing and regulated Wall Street too efficiently. It's going to be because they didn't do it enough. It's going to be because it was a sham. It's going to be because it was change in name, but they kept the exact same system in place in terms of how it really functions. So when it crashes again, just know this is what you're blaming. This is what's going to be directly responsible for it. You're getting rid of the few protections that we put back in place. And they're all going to act like, oh, what do you mean? Nobody could have saw this coming. CNBC, the fucking financial network, the business network that claim they know everything about everything when it comes to money. They were blindsided. Oh my God, I can't believe we had a crash. That's crazy. Well, I predicted the market was going to go up forever. They're going to say the same fucking thing when the next crash happens. Who could have saw this coming? I mean, we thought everything was going so great. I did. I fucking saw it coming. I saw it coming because I actually read what Congress is doing.